Perhaps today there is no person who hasn't heard of the Rothschild family. They're credited with immense wealth, accused of countless conspiracy theories, and suspected of influencing the global economy. From the assassination of an American president to the Holocaust, they've been blamed for every mortal sin imaginable. Many claim the Rothschilds choose presidents, crash stock markets, bankrupt nations, and fund wars. Some say that if their wealth were divided among all people on Earth, every human would have food and shelter. Yet instead, these billionaires are said to provoke mass poverty.
Today, the Rothschilds are believed to control the Federal Reserve, the precious metals market, oil companies, and more. Independent experts estimate their fortune at $500 trillion, more than half of the world's total wealth. But it wasn't always this way. Hard to believe, perhaps, but the story of the world's richest dynasty began with a boy born in 1744 in Frankfurt am Main, who grew up in a ghetto and was orphaned at a young age. Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the founder of the dynasty, started from poverty, driven by a burning desire to succeed. His ambition pushed him to act ruthlessly, at all costs. He would later say, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." But before that, he had a long road ahead. He started by opening an antique shop, which also offered currency exchange between German principalities, thus founding the first Rothschild Bank. Just 5 years later, Landgrave Wilhelm IX of Hesse-Kassel appointed him as his personal banker and royal supplier. Mayer's duties included growing the state treasury, financing the military, and supplying luxuries to the court. If successful, he would earn respect and profit. If not, punishment, financial ruin, or even execution awaited. But Mayer was bold. When Wilhelm fled Napoleon, Rothschild continued collecting debts on his behalf and even increased the amount. In a brilliant move, he withdrew funds from Wilhelm's British compensation account in cash, used them to buy goods at a discount, shipped them to Frankfurt instead of money, sold them at high prices, repaid the debt, and profited from currency exchange rates. In 1770, Mayer Amschel married and had 19 children, but only 10 survived, 5 sons and 5 daughters. Only the sons could conduct business. Daughters were excluded and received no inheritance. Once of marriageable age, family support ceased, and they had to find wealthy spouses, often leading to incestuous unions within the Rothschild family to retain wealth. In 1810, Mayer founded Mayer Amschel Rothschild and Sons. The family began issuing massive loans, earning colossal profits, even when the capital was later returned to Wilhelm's successor. After Mayer's death, his sons spread across Europe and created a financial empire. Amschel remained in Frankfurt, Nathan moved to London, James to Paris, Solomon to Vienna, and Karl to Naples. 5 brothers, like 5 fingers of a fist, gripping global power. Though formally independent, they had a communication system that informed them of political and economic events before anyone else. Information, and even disinformation, played a huge role in their success. Among them, Nathan Rothschild stood out for his ingenuity. After moving from Manchester to London, he opened a bank that flourished during the Napoleonic Wars. By 1814, Nathan's bank was financing Britain's war efforts, moving over £11 million in gold annually to Wellington and the Allies. The Rothschild banking network efficiently transferred enormous funds across war-torn Europe, minimizing the risk of physical transport. Before the Battle of Waterloo, Nathan received news of Napoleon's defeat hours before the British government. He began selling bonds on the stock exchange, tricking others into believing Britain had lost. As panic ensued, prices plummeted, and Rothschild agents quietly bought them all. When official news confirmed the victory 2 days later, bond prices skyrocketed. Nathan had earned £40 million, over $5.5 billion today. That event inspired his famous quote, "He who controls information controls the world." Afterward, the Rothschilds gained control of the Bank of England, and thus the British economy. They used their influence to manipulate other countries' economies for their own benefit. Monarchs and aristocrats became more compliant. The Rothschilds began buying up national debts and then crashing markets. Emperor Franz II gave them noble titles. All brothers became barons except Nathan, who later became the first Jewish lord in Britain. Their family coat of arms, originally rejected, was registered under pressure from influential allies. It features a fist clutching 5 arrows, symbolizing Mayer's 5 sons. The Latin motto reads Concordia, Integritas, Industry, Harmony, Integrity, Industry. By the mid-19th century, Rothschilds weren't just financial elites, but cultural patrons. Their guests included Heinrich Heine, Honoré de Balzac, Frédéric Chopin, and many others. They amassed art collections, estates, and vineyards. In the late 1800s, they set their sights on America, expanding their model of fiat currency to the New World by founding the Federal Reserve System. This private institution, functioning as the U.S. central bank, is owned by shareholders, not the government. Its decisions affect the dollar and, by extension, the global economy. Many consider the Fed the greatest financial fraud in U.S. history. America is forced to borrow money from the Fed, causing national debt to grow exponentially. Interest payments alone exceed $1 trillion per year. President Abraham Lincoln, seeking financial independence, issued greenbacks, government money, bypassing private banks. He was assassinated in 1865. A century later, John F. Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110 to restore money-issuing rights to the U.S. Treasury. Less than 6 months later, he too was assassinated. The order was revoked the same day. The Federal Reserve immediately withdrew and destroyed the newly printed Treasury bills. Since then, no president has dared challenge the Fed. The Fed has not only dominated U.S. policy, but also contributed to the collapse of the Soviet Union. After World War II, the USSR made historic economic gains, reaching the world's second-largest economy. One key reason was linking the ruble to gold, ending the exploitation of exchange rates. But after Stalin's sudden death, reforms were reversed, leading to economic decline and collapse. War, however, remains the Rothschilds' most profitable enterprise. They've financed both sides of nearly every major conflict, profiting regardless of the winner. Funding war through taxation alone causes unrest, but debt quietly enriches bankers. During World War II, Wall Street helped finance Nazi Germany. Bankers don't fight each other. They share intelligence and plan the post-war world. American media, largely owned by financiers, supports military solutions over diplomacy. Whether in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, or Syria, the war narrative dominates. So what has changed? Nothing significant. People still don't want war, but for the international banking cartel, it remains the most lucrative industry. Will there be a World War III? Only time will tell. The Rothschilds' goal appears to be dismantling major global rivals like Russia, China, and India, and establishing a new world government where bankers control politicians, as the Fed does in the U.S. Every year, Forbes publishes lists of billionaires: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. But where are the Rothschilds? Experts estimate their wealth at $500 trillion, 1,000 times more than any listed billionaire. They're missing from the rankings because they control the rankings. As the saying goes, happiness loves silence, and the Rothschilds would add, so does money. They use trusts to hide assets from tax authorities, law enforcement, and radicals. Over the centuries, they've hoarded gold worth trillions, owned shares in major oil companies, run fake charities,
offshore banks, and even hide Vatican wealth in secret accounts. They've acquired media empires, including Reuters and Associated Press, shaping global narratives. They own stakes in major TV networks like BBC, avoiding scrutiny by owning the very platforms that could expose them. They've been called the magicians of finance, the bankers of kings, and the kings of bankers. Once poor orphans from a ghetto, they became barons, parliamentarians, and global influencers, shaping events across 5 continents. Accused of numerous conspiracies, the Rothschilds remain central to global finance through every crisis, every century. And something tells us they haven't said their final word yet.